All right, let's jump right in. Right now, a whole lot of Americans, people with college degrees, people with what we all thought were safe careers, are quietly losing their jobs. Now, the official story you hear is that the economy is fine, but that story is hiding a much, much bigger truth. Today, we're going to unpack that truth, because what's happening isn't just another recession. No, it's the start of a massive economic transformation.
You hear this phrase everywhere, right? On the news, from politicians. The economy is just fine. But you know what? The actual data tells a completely different story. It's a story of numbers being twisted to cover up a really uncomfortable truth about the American workforce.
So what is that truth? Well, it starts with this number right here, 1 million. That's the number of jobs the Bureau of Labor Statistics recently had to admit never actually existed. They were forced to revise their own numbers way down.
Okay, so let's break this down, because understanding this million-job lie is absolutely the first step to seeing what's really going on with our economy.
Just look at the scale of this. The original job growth numbers weren't just off by a little bit, they were adjusted down by a staggering 70%. Look, a small revision, that's normal, but a 70% error, that's not a miscount. That's a sign the original numbers were basically papering over a really serious problem. And to put this into perspective for you, our current job creation is averaging just 15,000 jobs a month. Think about this. Even during the slow, painful crawl out of the 2008 recession, we were creating 150,000 jobs a month. That's 10 times more than today. These are, frankly, crisis-level numbers.
Which leads us to the big question, right? If things are this bad, why the official silence? Why isn't anyone sounding the alarm? The answer is because this isn't a typical downturn where the jobs are all just going to come roaring back. Something else is happening entirely.
And this brings us to the real story behind the numbers. It's not about a temporary down cycle. It's about a permanent substitution.
Now, look closely at where these jobs are disappearing. It's not in factories. It's not in construction. The losses are surgical. They are targeting cognitive, white-collar roles, jobs in software, in marketing, in management, the very jobs that built the modern middle class. This is not random.
So this idea of substitution is absolutely crucial. You see, in a recession, jobs are lost, but the idea is they'll come back when things get better. Substitution means those roles are being permanently replaced by technology. They are not coming back.
And this is exactly why this time is different. You know, previous waves of technology, they went after physical tasks, automation on an assembly line. AI is now automating cognitive tasks, thinking work. And that is a fundamental game changer.
Now, while this moment feels completely unique to us, history actually shows a very clear and often pretty brutal pattern that plays out every single time a game-changing technology like this arrives.
This quote just nails it. The Luddite fallacy is the idea that technology ultimately creates more jobs than it destroys. And you know what? Over the long run, for society as a whole, the macro, that's true. But for the actual individuals living through the change, the micro, the experience is absolutely devastating. Just take a look at this timeline. After the Industrial Revolution, it took 60 to 80 years for the economic benefits to actually trickle down to ordinary workers. With electricity, it was 40 to 60 years. With 30 years into the internet age, and guess what? The vast majority of the gains are still locked up at the very top. There is always a painful lag.
So who wins during that lag? Well, it's the owners of capital, the people who own the factories, the software, the assets. They capture the gains almost immediately. Meanwhile, the workers whose skills just became obsolete, they get left behind. And that creates this massive gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Now, this kind of economic fallout predictably leads to something else that's just as predictable: a political stalemate, which leaves most people trapped right in the middle.
And the response always splits along these familiar lines. The right will typically argue, hey, let the market sort it out. Growth will fix everything. And the left will argue for aggressive regulation to try and protect workers.
But here's the unavoidable truth from history. While the political system fights itself to a complete standstill, the technological transition just keeps rolling forward. And ordinary people are the ones who get crushed in the process. The system, let's be honest, is not designed to solve this problem for you.
So, if you can't rely on the system, what can you do? This brings us to the most important part of this whole explainer: a clear 5-step playbook for how you can navigate this new era.
Okay, here it is. Number 1, you have to shift your mindset and start thinking like an owner, not just an employee. 2, build a cash safety net, 6 to 12 months of expenses to give you breathing room. 3, You have to master AI tools at a professional level. 4. If you've got an entrepreneurial itch, now is the time to scratch it. The barriers to starting something have never been lower. And 5. Preserve your optionality. Stay flexible so you can adapt and jump on new opportunities.
Let me be crystal clear on this point. AI itself is not going to take your job. A person who has mastered using AI to become 10 times more productive, that person is going to take your job. For any white-collar professional right now, becoming that person is the single most urgent thing you can do. There really is no third option.
And this really hammers home that first, most critical step in the playbook. In every single one of these historic transitions, the wealth flows to the owners of the assets. You've got to stop just saving cash, which loses its value over time, and start owning productive assets.
So the key takeaway here is this. Getting through this massive shift isn't going to be about luck. It's about seeing the pattern for what it is, understanding the new rules of the game, and actually preparing yourself for what's coming. Look, the displacement we're seeing in the job market is real, it is structural, and it is speeding up. History's pattern of a multi-decade upheaval is playing out all over again, right now. So the choice is yours. Are you going to be the person who prepares for what's coming, or the person who gets left behind?